Hello there, and welcome to the Time Machine with Trish and Mike. I'm Mike.
And I'm Trish.
And we're glad you're with us once again on what is probably a very hot day wherever you're at, because it's the middle of summer and it's hot.
Yeah, that's really the only word for it. At least it's been real hot here in Edmonton.
It's been rather warm here. We've had a lot of like 93, 94 days over the last week, so that's been fun.
And you have the humidity too.
Yeah, and then we had Tropical Storm Elsa, although it didn't come directly through. Although for days leading up to it, I had been saying, I'm like, Elsa wants to go to Disney World, but she stayed off the coast and wound up not being a big situation here. So that was good. Of course,
I know.
Just getting started. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I know it hit Halifax, where a couple of my friends live in Nova Scotia. It was fairly windy, but no damage, thankfully.
Yeah, but we're just getting started on hurricane season. We're sitting here in mid-July, and we're just now beginning to start to get to the peak of season. So I'm sure we'll have another hurricane to chat about at some point later on.
Well, and I was talking to a friend in New York. Well, I guess he's technically Jersey, I think. But anyway, tomato.
You better get that right, because they will call you. Let me state for the record, that was Trish. So please direct all your hate tweets and messages.
I have a friend who lives in New York, or no, not in New York State. That's a state.
That's a state, yes.
And I said to him, I was like, is it weird that I really miss hurricanes? And he was like, is it the drink or like the storm? I'm like, both. I miss both. Is that a weird thing to miss? I miss being on the East Coast.
Yeah, because I guess really up there where you're at, you don't really get.
You get good thunderstorms.
You get good thunderstorms, right? But you don't
get tornado warnings.
Well, I was going to say you probably get those occasionally, but you don't get blizzards really, I guess, up there, do you? Maybe every now and then,
but every now and again.
Yeah, it's not like a yearly thing or something. It's like every maybe
nobody
few years.
Misses a blizzard,
right?
Gross.
So, except for the Dairy Queen ones.
I miss hurricanes. Oh yeah, Dairy Queen.
Now you know what Trish is having for dinner tonight.
Yeah, just blizzards. My kids aren't home. I am treating myself.
There you go. Shall we get started?
We can get started. There's no easy way around this one.
No.
Transition happening to this.
We have transitions for everything else.
That's true. Yes.
Not this one. Well, I mean, I guess after what's done is done, you could turn these people into hamburger meat for Dairy Queen, but that's probably kind of.
Oh God, Mike! My face.
If y'all could see,
I should have seen how much I dropped my jaw at this. My God. Oh no, it's like I got the giggles. Yeah, no, there's no easy transition. So July 17th, 1918, Tsar Nicholas II of Russia and his immediate family, his 5 children and wife, are murdered by the Bolsheviks at Impatiev House in Yekaterinburg, Russia. Now, if I've mispronounced that, I really hope anyone who lives in Russia can clarify the actual pronunciation of that.
Again, make sure you @ Trish in all your messages.
Why am I the troublemaker?
It goes with the name, T, troublemaking Trish.
Troublemaking Trish.
Hi, Miriam.
I like tutor time with Trish better. It's a better alliteration. This whole story, just like you can literally see the dominoes falling from very far away into how this story ends. Starting with Nicholas's crowning in 1896. He's never really trained for the job. He's not really inclined to rule. He ends up, there's kind of a forced election of sorts that puts him into the position of becoming the czar. So already you have an ineffective leader. There's a disastrous outcome in the Russo-Japanese War that then the revolution in 1905. Nicholas approves a representative assembly, the Duma, And he promises constitutional reforms, but then as soon as these reforms and promises kind of go against his power, he ends up being like, yeah, no, remember that? I'm going to take that back. So public support for the Bolsheviks and other revolutionary Greece starts. Then 1914, he leads the country into another costly war, which of course won, and Russia was very ill prepared to be a part of this war. The people are really, really grumpy. Soldiers just want to come home. The people just want their, to have finally in the country. March 1917, a revolution is going to break out in the streets of Petrograd, which of course is St. Petersburg, and he is forced to abdicate the throne later that month. So you think, okay, this is good, right? He abdicates. November 1917, the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, will then seize power in Russia, and they're going to create a provisional government, and they start about establishing the world's first communist state, which, I mean, we could get into a whole interesting conversation about that too.
I'm sure we could, yes.
Civil War is going to break out, so you see the next domino coming in June 1918. July, the anti-Bolshevik white Russian forces are going to advance on Yekaterinburg, and where Nicholas and his family are actually located. They're being held in a home. And little do the royal family know, but a death sentence has then been passed on the imperial family in order for these local authorities to work with the powers that be in this revolution. It's all very messy. You're just like, this is the final domino. Late on the night of July 16th, Nicholas, Alexandra, and their 5 children and 4 servants are ordered to dress quickly, go down into the cellar of the house in which they're being held, and they're told to sit for photographs. And it's all about a propaganda to make sure that people realize they haven't, run away or escaped. And suddenly armed men burst through the room and gunned down the imperial family. What's really, really sad is the royal family had been banking on a rescue attempt. And so they took all the jewels that they had and sewed them into the girls' like corsets and parts of the dresses. And the gunfire, it actually acted like a bulletproof vest where the bullets weren't able to penetrate the dresses. So the princesses didn't pass away right away and were actually then stabbed to death after the gunfire. It was like, whoa. So these poor women
have survived this traumatic experience in which they've seen their family killed, and now it's like, oh, wait, you're not dead?
Oh, here we go. Now the remains are then taken into the forest and buried, where they are not discovered until 1991. What's interesting is this is where the myth about Anastasia comes into play, because they found the remains of 3 of the daughters, the mother, the father, and the servants, but they could not find the remains of the young prince and Anastasia, the 4th princess. And so there was lots of people that thought maybe they got away, maybe someone had rescued them, had one of the soldiers felt pity and kind of fled with them. Various individuals would come forward and claim to be the lost princess. I think the most famous one was a lady by the name of Anna Anderson. So she claimed to have been Anastasia. She moved to the United States and ended up passing away in the United States in 1984. And although her story was very convincing, DNA evidence in 1994 proved that she was actually just a Polish woman named Franziska Saska-Zowska.
You did good.
Which is a mouthful.
Yeah.
I don't think that's...
Do you want to go back to our show from a couple weeks ago and try to say the name of the lake again?
No, that one can remain in the past. Now, sadly for all of you who do believe in the myth of Anastasia and that she did escape, I have bad news.
You mean worse news than a whole family being killed?
I mean, on one hand, it's kind of good news, because the remains of Alexei, the prince, and Anastasia, or Maria, they weren't quite sure which princess died, but people claimed it was Anastasia that was missing. Their remains were found in 2007, and it was proved with DNA evidence, part of the royal family from the original.
Well, by 2007, I would have expected her to be dead anyway, so that's not terrible news, I guess.
I mean, I guess it's, on one hand, yeah, it stinks, the mystery or the myth that we could cling to of this really interesting story is kind of, put to rest. But there's closure in the fact that she was with her family, and she and the prince, I mean, they were all together at least, and that their remains can be properly entombed and put to rest.
Yeah, I would agree. That part of it's good.
So it's always been really fascinating. It's never actually, Anastasia has never been, growing up cartoon wise, never been one of the movies that I've been personally drawn to. But I know people really like the mystery.
Yeah, I've seen the movie, a couple of times, but it's not one of my go-to. I mean, it's more of a princess movie, but I've seen the Disney princess movies.
Princess movies.
Well, no, I didn't mean it that way. I'm just like, because I've seen Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast a lot, obviously, but I'm just like, it wasn't one of my go-to princess movies, right. I guess, if we want to phrase things in a somewhat proper way.
Yeah.
But it's not a Disney movie either. That may be part of it, but
that's true too. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was pleasant.
Yeah. Revolutionary, war, murder, all happy, positive things. Note my sarcasm.
Mm-hmm. You know what else is happy? Getting back to your parking stall before you run out of time on your parking meter.
That is a really great feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Or when you see someone slip change into the machine and you're like, yes, there are good people in the world.
Yeah, but don't let the meter maid catch you.
Is that like a thing? If the meter maid catches you putting in money for someone else's car?
Yeah, they whack your arm off.
What?
Yeah, you didn't know that? Or that's how they do it in Russia, maybe. I don't know.
I'm not that gullible.
Well, on July 16th, 1935, the first parking meter was installed in, do you want to take a guess what city?
I'm going to say things seem to happen on the East Coast, so I'm going to go back to New York.
You would think that, and you would be wrong.
Oh, I'm always wrong.
Because, now, if you will recall, Trish, back on episode 17, we learned about the Oklahoma land rush.
Yes, we did. That was very interesting.
And one of the big things they were really good at figuring out very quickly was infrastructure.
Right, because they basically built that town overnight.
Mm-hmm. So by the 1920s, downtown shop owners were complaining because all the parking spaces were being occupied by workers during the day. So there was nowhere for shoppers to park. So newspaperman Carl McGee had a few ideas, but he wound up sponsoring a contest calling for designs of a timing device that would allocate set amounts of time for parking. So Gerald Hale would submit a design called the Black Maria, and him and McGee would go on to form the McGee-Hale Park-O-Meter Company and install their first meter on the southeast corner of First Street and Robinson Avenue on July 16th, 1935.
That name just sounds very ominous.
The Black Maria?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea where the name came from, but
I'm intrigued by this mysterious name.
I couldn't find information on that, but so how much did it cost for 1 hour of parking?
And this, you said this was
1935.
35?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say a nickel.
Trish got this one right.
It's just about wait, wrong, right? What did you say?
You get it right. It was a nickel for an hour.
For what? I was just about to mid-celebrate. You were about to burst my bubble.
Again, if you could see her face while I was wavering on that answer. So basically, the main mechanics of the machine were that you'd put the nickel in, and it would, as you put the coin in, it would kind of push a little bar down on the inside of the machine. And if you put 2 nickels in, it would push it down, like it would keep, pushing it down depending on the coin you put in, or put a quarter in or whatever. Like it was measured out. And so then that would start the little timer running inside, just like a watch. And, once it got back to 0, the little time expired flag would pop up. And really, until the late 1980s, these meters were fairly unchanged. There wasn't really much innovation to the meters. I mean, you had different companies that would make them as well, but for the most part, the basic premise of a parking meter was the same. They operated the same for a very long time. Then obviously, as newer technologies evolved, we have different types of parking meters. Like you go to a parking lot now, there may be a centralized meter where you pay with a credit card, or you punch in your stall number. There's different types of parking meters now, but for a long time they remained very similar to the original design. And so the first one was installed in 1935, and by 1944, some American cities were generating over $10 million annually just from parking. That's
a crazy amount. I remember when parking in my hometown went from like 25 cents on Main Street to 50 cents, and people were like losing it. They're like, no, that's it. We're just not parking downtown anymore.
Yeah, parking downtown. That's always my thing whenever you go downtown is parking is
It's so expensive.
it does get to be expensive, and then when you go to like an arena or something, you're easily paying $20-$30 for parking to go to an event.
Oh yeah. And when I say downtown, I'm a little facetious. Like my downtown of my hometown was, it's only 5,000 people. So it wasn't a very big downtown. But I know here recently in Edmonton, they were planning on charging for parking at various parks and public lands. And people were so upset that then city council was like, okay, we're taking it back. We don't want to do it.
Well, it's funny because that was one of the arguments people made back in the day against metered parking. They said, you can't charge us for using public roads, which the parking was kind of on, and they would get around that by saying, well, we're not charging you to park there, we're charging you to pay for the enforcement of parking.
Oh, one of those roundabout rules.
And that's where the meter maids came from, because originally cities would hire women, and so they became known as the meter maids, to go around and inspect the parking meters. In fact, New York City did not hire their first male parking enforcement officer until 1967.
Wow, it's a long time to have just a female-dominated industry.
Yeah. And now Trish, we've touched on cosplay a little bit here and there on our show, but correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't you do a character from the movie Zootopia?
I did do a character from Zootopia.
And what character would that have been?
That would have been Judy Hopps.
And what does Judy Hopps do?
She's a meter maid. At first, and she becomes a detective.
Yeah, but so there you go.
I love it. I've only worn that costume for one time. It's not that hard to get into, but wearing the feet, because we made fake feet to go on top of the shoes. It's a little difficult. You're flopping around like you have
clown shoes on,
like clown shoes or flippers, and the ears are on like a headpiece, and that just kind of digs into your head after.
At least it's fairly, compared to a lot of other cosplays, it's fairly comfortable.
Yeah.
I say that as someone who has got a convention coming up here in about a month, and I'm questioning everything because I'm like, it's the middle of August. Why am I doing all these cosplays that I cover me from head to toe? But I've missed convention. It's
so epic.
I've missed.
I can't wait for people to know what you're doing.
They will find out soon. Well, not soon. You'll find out in about a month. I always drop my lineup on Tuesday of con week, so you've got to wait until then to know.
Yes.
But Trish kind of knows some of my plans. She's seen a few preview pictures of stuff. So
yeah, it's gonna be so good.
Yeah, you know what else?
You're a little crazy.
Yeah, but it'll be worth it. So, crazy and good. That sounds like a perfect transition, because these are always crazy stories and sometimes they wind up good. Trish, it is your favorite segment, 2-minute tutor time with Trish.
Yay, where my historian heart gets to be happy. Oh God, is the timer? Are you getting the timer?
I'm getting the timer. We're doing this right.
I'm worried about this one. Okay. July 19th. 1553, Lady Jane Grey is going to be replaced by Mary I of England as Queen of England after only sitting on the throne for 9 days. I'm going to try and get through this, guys. Okay, now Lady Jane was the grandniece of King Henry VIII. Her grandmother, Mary, was the younger of Henry VIII's two sisters. I got to pause here because Mary has such a cool backstory. She secretly married Harry's best friend. She had been married to the King of France, who was 30 years her senior. But when he died, Harry entrusted his best friend, Charles Brandon, to escort her home. They fell in love. They got married with the king's consent, which was a treasonable offense. He exiled the couple, eventually welcomed them back to court. They paid a huge fine. It was quite a scandal. They had 2 sons and 2 daughters, one of them being Frances, Jane's mother. Oh, no, I have like 25 seconds.
No. You said pause, so I paused it. I restarted it now.
You're scaring me. Okay, I have 1 minute and 30 seconds. Okay, so I was going so fast. Now, Jane's gifted with, a great understanding of languages. She knew lots like Greek and Latin and all kinds of stuff. At 9 years old, she sent off to live with Catherine Parr, who was the last wife of King Henry VIII, and her new husband, Thomas Seymour, who planned to marry the young ward to her second cousin, Henry VIII's son, Edward VI. But Seymour was beheaded for treason in 1549, and Jane then had to leave the household. all accounts, she did not want the crown. She just wanted to be an academic and left alone. So May 21st, 1553, John Dudley, the Duke of Northumberland, who exercised a considerable amount of power and control over the young king, agreed with Jane's father to marry her to his son, Lord Guilford Dudley. So these men wanted a very strong Protestant on the throne. The heir was always sickly. They didn't think he was going to survive. They needed someone who was going to succeed him. Edward does die on July 6th, 1553. July 10th, Lady Jane, who fainted at the idea when it was first approached to her, is proclaimed queen. However, Edward's sister, Mary Tudor, the heir according to the Act of Parliament of 1544, and Henry VIII's will of 1547 had the support of the populace. And so on July 19th, even Jane's father attempted to keep position at court by proclaiming Mary queen. Now, Lady Jane and her husband are arrested for treason, but November 14th, 1553, she pleads guilty. They're sentenced to death. They left her in the tower without killing her. However, her father decides to get into a scandal by joining a rebellion, and that seals her fate. She and her husband are beheaded February 12th, 1554, and her father was executed days later. No, it's 2 minutes and like 25 seconds Tudor time.
Well, and I did give you that brief pause where you said I've got to pause for a second because you were going off on the sidebar. So I stopped the clock and I gave you an extra little bit of time. And I'm like, okay, you didn't tell me when you resume, so I think this is where you're resuming. So I hit go on the thing. But hey, 2 minute Tudor time, much like $2 Chuck at Trader Joe's is now $2.99. So, when you round up with the Canadian conversion, 2 minute Tudor time in America is like $2.41 Tudor time in Canada. So,
That's
with
great.
inflation, so we'll roll with it. Boom.
I am so glad that you are great with math skills.
I'm good with the maths. I am.
Anyway,
good.
can you imagine just this poor woman, getting thrown onto the throne? Like it's game over. Like you're not the rightful heir. People are going to be upset.
And they're not going to respect you and all that. Yeah.
And you don't even want it. That's the part that I hate about these situations. You don't even want the power. You don't want the responsibility. Like she just wanted to go and live in the library like Belle and just be left alone with her books.
At least it ends better than Anastasia.
I mean, I guess. I don't know. Beheading, I guess, is better than...
Well, no, I meant Belle would have been a better ending.
Yes.
Yeah, no, this one equally as bad as Anastasia.
Equally as bad, yeah.
All right, well, that was 2 minute Tudor time with Trish with an asterisk. Do you know, Trish, the greatest 2 minute temperature increase recorded?
2 minute temperature?
Mm-hmm. Meaning, at this point, it's X temperature, and 2 minutes later, it's gone up to something else.
It's got to be something wild. Like it went from, I don't know, 15 degrees to 29 degrees.
Are you giving me that in Fahrenheit or Celsius?
I always get confused which is mine.
Yours is Celsius.
Mine's Celsius.
Yes.
I always have to ask the Google to convert things for me all the time. So now both names have lost all meaning.
Okay, because I have, we're getting ready to do a weather section here, and I have everything converted. So
you're so kind.
So I have everything. So what was it you said? 15?
So I said 15 to 29. It's going to be something crazy. I don't know.
Yeah. So the greatest 2 minute temperature increase occurred in Spearfish, South Dakota on January 22nd, 1949. That's not the weather fact that happened this week that we're going to get to in a second, but we're using this as a transition because of the 2 minute deal. So anyway, in Spearfish, South Dakota on that day, in the span of 2 minutes, the temperature went up 49 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 27 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
It was -4 Fahrenheit, and it went to 45 degrees, in Celsius, -20 to 7.
There's obviously a Chinook that came in.
The hell, I have no idea, but that's quite it's quite a jump.
Because that can happen in southern Alberta a lot. Like a Chinook is a very warm wind that will come, and it'll be snowing in Calgary, and then there'll be lots and lots of snow, and by the afternoon it's warm and everything.
Okay, well,
but I feel really bad for people who have migraine.
That's quite a temperature swing. But no, the record that occurred this week on July 21st, 1983, the coldest temperature ever recorded on Earth was recorded. Would you like to guess where?
Hey, the logical part of my brain wants to say the Antarctic.
Okay.
But I know you're going to throw me a curveball, so I'm going to say somewhere in South Africa.
Okay. So this is the part where I would say you have done the thing I'm guilty of a lot of times, and you overthink things and should have went with your gut.
Oh, no. Okay.
The Soviet Vostok station in Antarctica was where this was recorded on July 21st. Do you want to take a guess at what the temperature was?
And how cold it was?
Yes. What's weird, this one makes sense. We're going to get to one in a minute that doesn't. But so remember now, Antarctica, now granted, it's always down there and it's at the bottom of the earth. But so this is in July. So that means it is wintertime down there.
Yes, that is true. We have to keep that in mind. I'm going to say minus 68.
Minus 68 Fahrenheit or Celsius?
Celsius.
Okay. Oh, you were somewhat close. Negative 89.2 Celsius.
So cold.
It is a negative 128.6 Fahrenheit.
Ooh,
that's a little cold. So
no, thank you.
Yeah. Now, there are satellite observations since then that have recorded lower temperatures, but this was an actual recorded at ground level temperature. So we're not, like there's a satellite observation from 2010 that shows negative 93.2 Celsius, negative 135 Fahrenheit. But again, it's measured by satellite. It's not an on ground, with a thermometer temperature being taken.
That's once you hit a certain level of cold, it's all.
And what's the coldest weather you've ever been in?
I'm pretty sure that I've with wind chill, right? Okay. It's been in the minus 40s
Celsius.
I can't remember exactly if it was so if it was minus 44, 48 with the wind chill, it got really brutally cold one winter I was living here. In Nova Scotia, I don't remember it getting quite that cold. I remember it being I don't know, negative 20 something, but you include the wind chill and then the humidity and the moisture, and it feels really cold. I would much rather take a dry cold here in Alberta than a wet cold back east.
Gotcha. Okay, so negative 44 Celsius is about negative 44 Fahrenheit.
Yeah, once you get to negative 50, it's the same, right? Is it negative 50 or negative 40, negative 40?
Something like that, since those numbers were fairly close. Because 0 degrees Celsius is negative 30 or is 32 degrees Fahrenheit here.
Yes,
so
that's right.
Because see that's where, and we've talked about the metric system versus the imperial system, but that's to me is one that makes more sense. Freezing makes sense to be 0. Why is freezing 32?
I don't know. You guys got rid of everything else British except for that.
Yeah.
Because at one point everyone was, and then we all switched to metric, and you guys just stayed imperial.
Yeah, well, we're something. So what's the coldest temperature recorded in Canada?
Oh, in Canada?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, goodness.
Okay.
I don't know where it's going to be. It's going to be somewhere in the Northwest Territories, I bet.
That's just what I was going to say. Do you want to take a guess where it probably was?
Yeah,
you might have a better chance. Yukon.
Although part of me, is it okay? The Yukon.
Yep. Negative 63 Celsius.
For some reason, my brain went to Churchill, but Churchill is really cold. It's it's a place on the Hudson's Bay, and it's the polar bear capital. Coldest
in the United States.
Oh, is it? If it's not Alaska, that would be weird.
It is Alaska. Okay. Negative 62.2 Celsius, negative 80. So very, very close to that Yukon temperature. Now, if we're going at just the main contiguous 48 states, it's Rogers Pass, Montana, back in 1954. Negative 70 Fahrenheit, negative 56 Celsius.
Would you rather be too cold or too hot?
Too cold.
Yeah, same. You can bundle up and get warm.
Right. And that's always been my justification to it. Is I can always put another layer of something on, assuming you're prepared and you have it with you. It's not if you're stuck, if I walk outside and it's 90 degrees and all of a sudden in 3 minutes it drops to, negative 12. Well, I'm kind of screwed anyway,
Right.
but all things being equal, you have time to prepare. Would I rather go to a football game in freezing weather versus go to a baseball game in August when it's 94 degrees outside? I would give me the cold.
It gets too difficult to cool your body temperature.
Right. Because you can, like I said, you can always bundle up. That's a lot. Because once you get hot, it's hard to cool down.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Hottest temperature on record. We actually just missed the anniversary for this one.
Oh, wait. Oh, I just saw it on my calendar too. the other day. It's in Death Valley, but I don't know the temperature. Is it like 103?
Furnace Creek, California, July 10th, 1913, 134 degrees Fahrenheit.
44, gross.
That's 56.7 Celsius for everybody else listening.
No thanks.
Now, again, there have been some disputes about this temperature reading, and there have been some satellite observations and stuff that have recorded hotter temperatures, but much like with the cold, is a few degrees really making a difference? It's hot. It's cold.
It's hot. Yeah.
Now,
once you reach a certain threshold, that's it.
Right. So here's an interesting fact. The hottest temperature in Canada was actually just set about 3 weeks ago.
Yep. In BC. That town went on fire.
Yes. Lytton. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
British Columbia, 121 degrees. I would never think anything in Canada could get to be that hot.
The interior of BC can actually get quite warm, but that's warm.
Yeah.
And then the city, there was literally fires. Like it just started burning.
Because of the heat?
I think because of the heat, like something caught, I don't know what started it, but I think it was because like the sun obviously like glinting off something or starting a grass fire or something. Yeah.
Not good.
Just
so we just talked about the Antarctica being the coldest temperature. Mm-hmm. What do you think the hottest temperature ever recorded in Antarctica was?
Does it even get remotely? Well, I mean, isn't the ice melting? So it has to get above zero.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that's because of the ocean temperatures are rising.
Yeah. And I didn't look up to see where this base was on the continent, but I'm assuming it probably has to be somewhere closer to a coast, I would think. But I don't know that to be sure. So
23 degrees is my guess.
23 degrees Celsius?
Yeah.
You're not too far off. 18.3 Celsius, which is a beautiful 64 degrees for us in America.
Yeah.
That's very pleasant.
Yep, that's a sweet spot right there.
And that was set on February 6th, 2020, which again makes sense. That would be summertime down there.
Mm-hmm.
But the South Pole, the actual South Pole, where the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station that's ran by the United States, 9.9 degrees Fahrenheit, so negative 12 Celsius for you. Mm-hmm. That's the hottest temperature ever recorded there. Here's where this is weird. It was set on Christmas Day 2011, which
that's kind of weird.
Which, well, I mean, again, it is summer down there.
Summer there,
but still, it's just kind of so. I guess in theory, it does actually make sense that it would be then. But it's interesting to me that it actually does get, even at their hottest, they still don't get above freezing down there at the South Pole. So that's way down there.
It's way down there. There's actually a scientist on TikTok that I follow who lives at one of the research facilities. And it's really interesting how he talks about like just regular daily life and what they experience at the South Pole.
Oh, that sounds interesting. You'll have to give me that. I'll have to check that out. Yeah. Yeah. So a bunch of crazy, funky weather things.
Not somewhere I'd want to live. Thank you.
But coldest temperature. It all occurs naturally, though.
It does all occur naturally.
It's the weather.
There's lots of things that occur naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such as?
Such as rocks, which leads us into our next story, which is July 15th, 1799. The Rosetta Stone is going to be discovered by Pierre-François Bouchard, who's an officer in the French Army of Engineers. It's pretty cool, right? Not the language program, which a lot of us now interpret that when you say Rosetta Stone, you think, oh, I'm going to learn German today.
Literally, when you told me you were going to talk about Rosetta Stone, I said, are you talking about the learning program or the rock?
Yes, the rock, the naturally occurring stone.
Not the rock, star of Disney's Jungle Cruise, available on Disney Plus and in theaters coming in very soon. And Disney Plus, you want to send me a check for that, for plugging it for you? Or maybe
that's right.
Maybe old DJ himself could be like, yo, Mike, appreciate the shout out. Yeah.
Just hand you a 50.
Yeah. I'll be good with that.
No, what's interesting is the stone is going to be discovered near the town of Rosetta, hence the name, which is about 35 miles east of Alexandria in, of course, Egypt. And what was interesting is Napoleon, who was an emperor known for his enlightened view of education, art, and culture, when he invaded Egypt in 1798, he took a bunch of scholars with him and he said, look, if you find anything of important cultural artifacts, we're going to take them back to France. And so, of course, Bouchard, who's one of Napoleon's soldier, is aware of that order. And when he finds this basalt stone, which was almost 4 feet long and 2.5 feet wide, he then takes possession of it and they take it off to France. So what's interesting about the stone and why it's so important to scholars is the fact that it contained fragments of passages written in 3 different scripts. So there was Greek, Egyptian hieroglyphics, and Egyptian Demotic, which is a different language that the Egyptian people utilized, I guess. The ancient Greek on the Rosetta Stone told archaeologists that it was inscribed by priests honoring the king of Egypt, Ptolemy V, in the 2nd century BC. And utilizing the Greek, they were able then to understand that all 3 passages had identical meaning. And so it was the key to solving the riddle of hieroglyphics, which scientists hadn't been able to figure out how to decipher it. So this really allowed them to decipher the hieroglyphics and then go and look at all of these ancient monuments and statues and the pyramids and be able to figure out the meaning behind all of these images that they had been able to catalog. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was interesting. And it's when you hear the story of it, it's kind of, you could see where they came up with the Rosetta Stone name for the learning software, the language.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's actually French Egyptologist Jean-François Champollion, who is going to be the one to crack the code. And then when the British defeat Napoleon in 1801, they took the Rosetta Stone. I believe they returned it to Egypt, but I can't remember because, of course, the British, like most imperial countries, when they took over places, took stuff and then put it in museums. But now there is this returning of, artifacts and culturally significant items to the countries where they were originally taken from. So I can't remember. I should have double checked that. But really interesting that they ended up having it for quite a while. Now, Mike, if you could learn any language, what would it be?
That's actually a good question. In Florida, knowing Spanish would be very helpful, but I don't know that's the language I'd want. I would think I'd want to learn. Oh, forget that. No, I do have my sign language.
Oh, yes.
That would be a good one. I'm being getting by on a technicality, but yeah, that would absolutely be the language I would love to learn because that's something because so few people know it, but when you get that one instance of where somebody does, it means the world to them because they you can communicate with us, but they don't have to write something down or just whatever. Wasn't there? Maybe it was sometime within the last. I'm going to say sometime in the last year, but it could have been the last 2 years. I don't know because we know time is just a random collection of numbers over this last year. But wasn't there somebody at Starbucks or something that learned sign language?
Yeah, I remember
there was like a TikTok or something about this. Like that kind of moment. So that would be cool. But if we're talking spoken verbal languages, I would say either something like French or Italian would be cool, or maybe Japanese would be cool too because it's so
well. And learning one of the romantic languages, right, like Spanish or Italian or French,
right?
They're all kind of similar, so I think you could get away with communicating with more people,
right? But, and that's kind of why I said Spanish here, simply because obviously we have a lot of Hispanic population here in Florida, and speaking Spanish would be very beneficial. But I'd say if I had to choose like French or Italian, that would be cool.
I wish my French was so much better. I've lost quite a bit of it. And the way they teach it is not like I just want conversational French where I can just go and talk and I don't need to write or read necessarily.
Yeah. And I think we've discussed this before a little bit. Like I can kind of with Spanish, if you give me something in Spanish, I can read it to you, but I can't converse with you because I have no idea what I'm saying. But like I could pronounce it pretty decently. And I can kind of do a little bit with Japanese again, but it's got to be written in English. Like if you give me a Japanese name, I could say it to you, and
you're really good with pronunciation.
Yeah, thank you. But
but I think with my dyslexia, it throws me off. So I'm just like, it's like okay.
but there are some languages that I would have no clue how to begin to pronounce something, without getting some assistance or using a Rosetta Stone. But
right.
I don't know. How about you? What would be the language for you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would love to, like I said, have my French. actually be appropriate to converse with, living in a bilingual country.
Yeah.
I did try to take Spanish at university and I failed hard because again, it was about conjugating verbs. And I'm like, can I just learn to talk to somebody? Like, I just want to be able to ask for basic directions or compliment someone on something or say please and thank you. Like, fairly simple things. And there was a girl in my class who was very fluent in French. And because it was similar with Spanish, she was able to kind of swing her way through the course quite easily. I'm like, oh, not me. So sorry, Mom, about that again. I tried to tell her at midterms that I was failing and she didn't believe me. So I ended up having to overhaul a course. And I took weaving and stained glass. Very important.
And how have you used those since then?
I have never used either since leaving university.
So you're just, your mom's had a rough week and now you're trying to disappoint her again by not using your stained glass and basket weaving.
I also took Irish Gaelic
at
university. I did get to use that once as a professional in my teaching career because we had a Flex Friday where I had to teach it to a couple of students.
Oh, well, then there you go. At least you use that. That's good. That was money well spent. It
was money maybe well spent.
Well, it's better spent than the basket weaving class.
It wasn't basket weaving. It was tapestry weaving.
Oh, tapestry weaving. My apologies.
I know how to make a loom out of copper wire, or not wire, copper piping. I can loom you a nice area rug.
Okay.
How about that?
When are you going to start? When the show ends, right?
Yes.
But by the time we come back from our summer break, you will have a full a tapestry for me, right?
Yeah.
You heard it, folks. She said it on the show. It's got to happen, right?
Start with the wall hanging first.
Spoiler alert. It did not happen.
You don't know that.
Oh, I know that. I know that.
But you just dropped a little bit of news there, Mike.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and let the cat out of the bag here. We will be back next week with a show, but we are going to be taking the month of August off from the show. We're just, both of us, our schedules are just going to be quite busy. All good stuff though, since we're both finally getting to do things, and it's just, the scheduling is just not going to work out for us to really do shows.
Yeah.
So we are going to be taking a bit of a break in the month of August. We will still be active on Instagram with stuff. So we'll still be around, but we figured this would give you a good chance to kind of get caught up, because I know some people listen to these and they do get, because there are a lot of podcasts out there and you get behind, and we give you a little chance to get caught up. So we will be taking a break in August, but we'll be back.
Yep.
But we'll be here next week for you. And then we'll be back in September with more fun stuff.
Brand new fun adventures through time.
Yes. So with that being said, Trish, do the thing.
As always, if you have any questions, concerns, queries, or freakouts, you can reach us at thetimemachine@gmail.com, the Time Machine on Instagram. You can put that into your Google and find us on YouTube. Please hit like and subscribe, because then our name actually gets, searchable properly on YouTube. You can also. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say our end goal by 2021 is to get the youtube.com/Time Machine with Trish and Mike.
Be like, ooh, such an exciting day.
I know. That'll be more exciting than getting like the gold YouTube play button, because like we're not getting that anytime in 2021. But we just want to get our URL, people.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
Eventually, you might even see our beautiful faces on there. We're still working that out.
We ain't going to get there until we get the URL. How about that?
Okay. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good challenge.
Yes. And then you could have seen the look on Trisha's face earlier of pure horror.
I do make pretty epic facial expressions, if that is, a game changer and enticement to get you to hit subscribe.
But regardless, video or no video, we will catch you right here next week on The Time Machine.